Okay. Vigilante, young Vince, Uncle Vinny. And we are in the presence of a real Toronto legend. The one and only owner of She Said Gallery, Jyll Simmons.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for having me in your home. I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome.
We are on location.
Great, thank you.
So first, I don't know if you could tell on camera, but you are about to have a baby.
Yes, I am going to have a baby next week, actually.
Next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is my second child. This one was planned, and I feel so lucky that I will say I'm an older mother, and I feel really lucky that I have this opportunity. So again, thanks for coming to me as it's so close to the due date.
My pleasure, man. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Love that. So how are you doing? What's going on with you?
Things are good. I've right now is the Contact Festival, the Scotiabank Contact Festival. So we've got some stuff going on at the gallery. So it's been nice because I finished up work. I work at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and I finished up work like a week and a half ago. So I've had some time to kind of spend at She Said Gallery more than I've had in the last few months. So that's been really nice. But yeah, have you gone to a lot of the Contact Festival stuff?
I actually haven't. You know what? The winter time kind of slowed me down from events. So now that the weather's getting good, I'm gonna hop back into the game.
The only thing I wish they did is they would create like an app that you could see where the different like images are being displayed, because it's not always at galleries. Like some of them are at coffee shops, laundromats.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to like Google it all and figure out your way. It would be nice if there was just like an app and you could like see and then pick kind of an afternoon to do it. But that's my only critique about the festivals. It's kind of hard to figure out where the art is unless you're like going through the website.
Yeah, a little scavenger hunt.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. So this is your first podcast, you said? On-camera interview?
It is. Am I getting red?
Not at all. So shout out Chrome Sunsets, the homie Azoko. He did an interview with you written.
Yes.
And I learned a lot about you, but I would love to kind of hear your backstory a little bit. So you grew up in Bracebridge, correct?
I did. I grew up in Bracebridge, Ontario, in the 80s. And I feel like a lot of people really love it up there. They love going to Muskoka. I never loved it. I always couldn't wait to go. Even my mom today was joking that I was like saying I was going to move to Paris when I was 6. But yeah, I always wanted to leave. I don't know. I think there's something like beautiful about it, nostalgic about it. But honestly, for as long as I can remember, it was just like, what can I do to get out of here? And I was mentioning in the interview too, like, I'd never even been to a museum till I was like in my 20s, Like I really felt like, although I got exposure to like lakes and being outside, I really missed out on a lot of the arts. And it was something that I felt really like self-conscious about when I moved to Toronto, because I realized like everyone had this general understanding of museums and art history, and like I knew nothing, So that's kind of, I feel like, where the initial interest to be, maybe not in the arts, but like rub shoulders with artists kind of came into play.
That's very relatable for me. I grew up just outside of Toronto, like not far, but I always enjoyed the city bustle as well. Like I appreciate nature, I appreciate the slower pace, but I feel like you just get a different energy in a city like Toronto.
Yeah, and also like you can be yourself without drawing too much attention to yourself. I think like I wouldn't say like I don't like attention, but I don't like being the center of attention necessarily. But the way that I carry myself and the way, if you asked anyone I grew up with, like I went through like a raver phase, I went through a goth phase. I very much stood out in Bracebridge. And it wasn't like, that wasn't my goal, but like I wanted to be myself, but that it was like almost too much attention. And it was nice because when I moved here, I could be myself. I could do whatever I wanted. No one cared. I was just like everyone else. And I kind of loved that about the city. And I guess I always kind of knew that's what I was looking for, is to be able to be kind of myself, but anonymous as well.
I definitely feel that. What was the kind of like stuff you were consuming at that time to be in the goth scene? What kind of music and stuff were you into? Very curious.
Yeah. So there was a band called Pig that I was obsessed with. Skinny Puppy, 9 Inch Nails. I had like 1-inch black hair, painted my face purple, and then put white foundation on top. I used to come to Queen Street to go shopping once a year, and I would get like my 20-hole docks and like nylons on my arms that were ripped. I definitely had a style. And I had like a little crew of friends that were amazing as well. But yeah, we definitely like weren't loved in the town of Bracebridge. It seemed like attention-seeking behavior, which is kind of frowned upon. But again, I loved it. I don't know, for me, it was like creative style has always mattered to me, whether anyone thinks my style is good or not. I always usually like what I'm wearing. Yeah, so that's kind of, but that was like a 2-year phase that makes me laugh, because sometimes when I go to visit my father there, people will be like, oh, I haven't seen you since you were goth. And I'm like, I was 15, like it was so long ago, but I still have that entity in Muskoka as like the goth girl.
You're a goth legend up in Bracebridge.
Yeah, my grade 9 photo is legendary.
Okay, sure. That might have to be the thumbnail for our video here.
It's really funny.
How did you make your way out of the city? Because that's a big thing. Like, a lot of people want to leave where they're from. Doing it is not the easiest.
Well, weirdly, I've always been a really confident person. I don't know why. I've never been exceptional at anything. But my mother's kind of the same way. She's super confident, so I guess I got it from her. But I don't like being told what to do. I never have. And I had, I wasn't on the right path for sure. I was like not going to school, getting into lots of stuff I shouldn't. And I just one day I had this teacher say to me, like, I don't think you're going to go to university. You can look at colleges. And like I said, like there's nothing wrong with colleges, but in my mind, I was like, I'm always going to university. And then the idea that like I may not even get into college and that I may not get out of this town was frightening. But also I was like mad that someone was going to tell me what I was going to do. And then I just like basically in a year, like turned my marks around, did everything, and like got out in spite of this teacher.
Spite is a very good motivator. Yeah. I've had that in my life a lot, where it's like, if I don't care about it, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. But if I'm like, well, what the fuck? Okay, we're doing it now.
Well, and like, everyone has their own choices. I've chosen to have, children later in life, but like, I knew what my opportunities were there. Like, I knew that if I stayed there, I would probably marry my high school boyfriend or someone from there and have children by the time I was in my mid-20s. And maybe that's not true, but like that's what happened to my parents. Sure. And no offense to my parents, but it wasn't the life that I wanted. So that, like, someone telling me like, oh, you may not get into school, and in my mind that was my only way out, was kind of terrifying for me. But also just I was like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Like I am getting out of here. So but yeah, that was kind of, I don't know. I was really lucky though. Like I left Muskoka and moved into a motel with my boyfriend and his best friend out west. We were gonna like snowboard, and it's gonna be so amazing. We didn't snowboard. We were broke. We worked in fast food. It was horrible. But that's where my aunt helped me like write an essay to U of T, and we like faxed it in and everything. And I got in, and it was like life changing for me. But in retrospect, it's really crazy how insignificant, like I spent 10 minutes on this essay, and like I'm sure my aunt made it sound better, but like that could have derailed my whole life, but I just like, I don't know, the idea of like I said, the confidence, like the idea of not getting into university never crossed my mind, even though like U of T is hard to get into. I'm so lucky that I got in there. So
confidence is a huge, I mean, you're not the first person to say that. I'm not the first person to say that, but it's almost underappreciated how important it is to be confident. If you don't have that, many times you're not going to succeed. You got to be kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's funny because like my boyfriend is a little bit like, I would say, shyer than I am, and sometimes he'll laugh that it seems like arrogant, and I'm like, oh, like I don't see myself as arrogant, but it's interesting to see that, or to hear that feedback sometimes, that I might come across that way. And it's true, I don't know where my confidence comes from. Like I've never necessarily been great at anything, but I've always had the confidence to like talk to people and do things, follow, like if I have an idea, I'm going to follow through on it, but I don't know where it comes from.
Hey man, you have it though, and that's all that really matters. And I think it's necessary for anything, like in the world you're in, that I definitely want to dive deeper into, but any job, any lifestyle, like anywhere, you need confidence to succeed and progress, I think.
Yeah, and it helps you too, like I do a lot of hiring in my kind of 9-to-5 role, and I find that confidence often is associated with like initiative, and I love working with people that take initiative, right? And that's one thing, like I will rarely ask questions until I've done everything to try to figure out the answer myself, and I appreciate that in other people as well. And I think that it's like the confidence to take initiative, and I realize that it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. Like a lot of people are looking for direction, and yeah, I don't know.
Do you feel that you just don't fear failure?
I definitely don't fear failure. I've definitely failed, and like not to say like speak poorly of myself, but I've never expected much from myself. So like even like small successes for me are huge, even though for other people they might be nothing. But for me, they feel big because I never really thought that I would do anything. Like even getting a job at CAMH was like winning the lottery to me. Like being a doctor was not even like nothing I ever considered. Like doctors were like gods to me, you know what I mean? But just even getting a job at CAMH was such a big achievement for me. But like for a lot of people, that's just like, a 9-to-5 job. It's like whatever. But I think that has a lot to do with it. Is that like, little things are big achievements for me, and I'm definitely not afraid to fail because I kind of expect to fail sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost liberating. Like, if I fail at this, okay, there's something else. We'll figure something else out. Yeah,
and I'm pretty like I don't usually take a lot of risks per se, so like my failures would be like small ones, like I've never like invested a bunch of money in a business or anything. Like I don't know that I could say I would take risks like that, but small ones for sure. I'm not scared of failure as long as it doesn't impact my life.
Yeah,
my day-to-day
calculated
life.
risks.
Yeah, exactly.
Calculated risks.
Exactly.
So you went to school at U of T for what you're currently working in?
No, I went for psychology and criminology. So I did like an honors Bachelor of Science in that, and then I bartended forever. Most of my 20s, loved it, loved people, loved socializing.
Which part of the city mostly?
So I used to work in Kensington. I bartended. I'd usually work like 3 jobs at a time. So I'd work like at a restaurant, at a bar, and then I got really into the after-hour scene.
Comfort zone?
I never did that comfort zone, but like a lot of like the kind of one-off private parties. In my 20s, I hung out with a lot of people that were either DJs or like dating DJs, and it was really fun. But I got invited and worked at a lot of parties. I loved it. It was great, before I worked at CAMH. But yeah, I went basically from university to like full-time party bartending for like probably 5 or 6 years.
You saw a different time in Toronto history then.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's funny because it doesn't feel that long ago to me, but yeah, like I used to like live at Wrong Bar, which was in Parkdale, and I loved it. I had this and I still had that group of friends, but I mean, I used to hang out with a group of like probably 15 girls 3 times a week, and we were like a crew that went everywhere, and it was awesome because you kind of like know the music scene, everyone, so like every time I went to the bar, it was like 40 or 50 of your friends. Same with like the Hoxton and stuff.
Yes.
All stuff that's kind of gone now. But yeah, it was really, I definitely have no regrets. I did everything in my 20s, probably a little bit too late into my 30s, but like I went out and I did everything. So it was, really, really fun time.
Do you feel like, so obviously you're at a different stage of your life, but and we'll get into this more in the interview, but you're still running around the city. Do you feel like there's huge differences? You're different than you were, obviously, but do you feel the city as a whole is quite different than what it used to be?
I do. I thought, what I thought was really cool is that basically, like I said, like I kind of held on to my youth maybe a little bit longer than most people. I was still going out like pretty frequently in my mid-30s. But then when COVID happened and that I got pregnant with my first child, I realized like that part of my life is phasing out. As my brother told me, probably a good thing. But now, like, I don't know, I found it's different in that I'm meeting this like new group of people, and often like through the gallery, they're younger. And it's really interesting to see the differences between like my friends and I in our 20s and what 20-year-olds are like now. And one of the biggest things I noticed is that I feel like when I was in my 20s, like you would never give someone a compliment because it would kind of make you...
It wasn't cool.
It wasn't cool, right? And like, especially to another woman. And so like every once in a while you would like save the compliment for like the cool person, but like on a regular, you're not meeting people and complimenting each other. But now when I'm meeting people, like I can't believe how kind like 20-year-olds are now. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, is that I feel I never feel judged as being kind of an older person. I feel like everyone's so inclusive and kind and supportive, and like even you reaching out, you know, like in my mind of like, why would a young person want to interview me about my like gallery and a laundromat? But like, I don't know, at this point it's like not even shocking because everyone is so kind.
That's so refreshing, because like on TV, for example, you always hear, oh, this generation's fucked, you know?
Yeah.
So for someone that is a little older to be like, no, you guys are all right. I think that's nice to hear.
Yeah, like my boyfriend, he used to skateboard a lot when he was younger, and it was like such a mean, masculine thing.
Skateboarders were weird, are mean.
Right? Like, you know,
culture.
You go, like, I've even been to like skate parks where like men have like smashed shoulders with me, and I'm like, I'm not even surprised, right? Because they're like my age or older, and I'm like, that was the culture. But like now, you know, we're still shocked that like how kind people are. You go to the skate park now and they're like, yes, like join us, you know, where it wasn't like that. Like there were certain skate parks that like my boyfriend Dan wouldn't even go to because that like wasn't his like area. Mm-hmm. He could only go to certain ones.
It was down near like gang culture.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's really like interesting, the changes. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I notice. It's just how like kind people are. Like I actually have not had a single bad experience with running the gallery.
I love that.
Yeah. And often too, like if I have time, I'll come to the show, but sometimes I don't. So I'm really putting my trust in a stranger to respect the space, have their friends respect the space. Like I've had no issues in 2 years. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And okay, so now I'd love to get into the nitty gritty of She Said, but just for backstory for the people, like I threw a gallery art show at She Said Gallery, and I messaged Jyll, get some details, and she was like, yeah, just, you know, just put shit on the wall, try your best to clean up, and that's pretty much it. And I was like, yeah. That's pretty much it. Like, yeah. I was expecting to have to sign like friggin' 15 waivers and stuff, and you were super chill to let like you said, random people damn near fuck up your space for the sake of art and community.
Yeah, I'm pretty like, I definitely go into things thinking people are good. Like when people fuck me over, I'm rattled, you know, like I definitely go into it thinking that everyone's like pretty nice. Yeah. And so I don't know. And the other thing too, is like I said, like I'm not coming from an arts background at all. Like I want to learn from people that have shows at the space, what they've done. Like you did something totally different than say like another artist, and it's so interesting to me. Like you have this like kind of ugly space, and there's like sometimes laundry machines going, and everybody does something different with it, and like the people that come out are different, the music, I don't know. For me, like I definitely don't want to curate that, because I think that that's what like makes it unique, is seeing what everybody does, you know. I
completely agree, and that's what I love about your space, is that there's no pretentiousness at all. There's no like I relate to you too when you said you kind of had like grunge, you were into the grunge stuff, like punk stuff. I liked all that stuff too, and my main thing about it that I enjoyed was like no rules.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what the best thing about your spot is, I would say.
I also have like zero attention to detail. My boyfriend's the opposite. Like he'll walk in a room and he sees every flaw. I don't. I kind of like that about myself. Yes. Like I never really see the flaws. So like even with the space, when people were like, "Oh, can I fix this?" I was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." So you know, it's like it doesn't. It's not me like trying to be relaxed about the space. Like for sure, there's holes in the walls, but I don't even notice them. You know, and so if people want to, if it means something to someone and they want to clean that up, they're welcome to, and we try to every once in a while. But I think you know, we've all been to galleries in Toronto that are perfect. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, that
kind of turns me off.
Yeah,
I like the mystique of the you know, the holes in the walls.
Well, and it makes you feel like maybe I can afford this art too. Like,
true.
I think I love going to art shows now more than ever, because I feel like there's like, you know, She Said isn't unique, and that there's lots of other spaces too that are becoming more accessible, that aren't like formal art galleries. But like there's something fun about going to a gallery where the cheapest piece of art is $20,000.
No, you know? And it feels like you're in a fucking funeral.
I know, you like naturally put your hand behind your back.
Like that's not fun.
Yeah.
But no, I love your space, man. And again, we're gonna be talking about this quite a bit. How did you even come to, first of all, own this laundromat in the first place?
So at the time, my boyfriend and I were looking at buying something to live in. So that's kind of where the building came from. And originally, we were going to buy the building, take over the business of the laundromat for some like income, and then live above it. We realized that like basically it wasn't going to be ideal considering we got pregnant and like I don't know, living on like the third floor of a building, like it was just going to be a bit harder. So anyway, that was kind of how that started, is that we were lucky enough to be able to purchase a building and keep all the tenants that were there. So there's some commercial tenants and some residential tenants, and we were able to kind of easily take over. So that was really nice. And then we had the laundromat, and definitely at the beginning, we thought it was going to be very hands-off. Wasn't quite the experience. We had some issues like with people. I mean, it's a warm space. It's a kind of a private space. So people were coming in and using drugs. And as I said, like I work at CAMH. I was just trying to figure out like what the best way to deal with it was, right? Because like I wanted our customers to feel comfortable, but I also didn't want to be the people that came into the neighborhood and like kicked people out that were unhoused. So anyway, it was kind of a balance, and like I obviously don't know the answer to any of it. I tried at one point to like make friends with a guy and kind of relate and say like, you're welcome to chill here. You can plug your kettle in, but like you can't shoot up here. But then he ended up moving all of his things into the laundromat and putting letters for me. And so, you know, even though I thought I was doing the right thing, I was like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. That didn't work. But yeah, that's kind of why like the idea of She Said came about, because I was like, we need to do something with this space because it's not getting used for the right purposes. And it was like really frequently that we were having people come in and using drugs. We had some overdoses and stuff. So that's kind of what like piqued my interest in being like, what else can we do with this space to make it a little bit more of a community space rather than just like a warm place for people that are unhoused.
Man, I mean, that's honestly still amazing that that's the mentality you took, because I think most people, if they had that happen to them, they'd be like, fuck this, like I'm selling this building, or like I'm done, there's no longer a community space. You looked at it as, I still need to make this a community space.
Yeah.
You know, how? And man, I think that is an amazing test of your character. I definitely commend you for that.
I mean, yeah, I've worked at CAMH for like over 15 years. Like it takes a lot to kind of rattle me. So even the idea that people may have had like an overdose or something, like I think it was a little bit harder for my boyfriend to wrap his head around, or a little bit scarier. I was like, yeah, this is like real life. Like, how are we going to kind of deal with this and keep people safe? Like that's the other thing too, is that, you know, as much as we didn't want to kick people out, but like I don't want a 7-year-old kid that's coming in with their grandparents to do laundry to see someone overdosed on the ground. It's so traumatic, right? So
it's almost, this is a deep topic, but I think about it all the time. Like you got like compassion and love for one another for sure, but safety is also a huge thing. And like, yeah, we can say everyone's welcome, but if you're doing things that are putting other people at risk, you know.
And it's like a flaw with my, like sometimes, again, back to the confidence thing, like sometimes, like where my boyfriend and I were renting a place at Dundas and Bathurst, and there was a gentleman in the alley behind our house who had obviously overdosed, and he was like quite young. It was hard to tell how old he was, but it turned out he was 17. But I felt very confident, like speaking to him, waiting for the ambulance. Like I just wanted to be with him. This was a kid. Anyway, he kind of took it to another place. And I had this moment in this alley where I'm like, I'm alone with this guy. He's just pulled down his pants. He's threatening me. And I'm like, God, what am I doing? Like, why do I put myself in these situations? But it's back to that like weird confidence where I'm like, I can handle this. I can help someone. And nothing bad came of it. You know, I literally told the kid to pull his pants up. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I have this like thing where I want to help people like almost to a fault sometimes, where I forget my own safety. And I think it's because I've never, knock on wood, nothing bad has ever happened, but I think about it more for like other people too, like in the space, because things can turn so quickly, you know.
100%. And that's like throwing that event, the one I did, it was awesome. It was such a great vibe, but that did cross my mind sometimes where like I can't really control who's coming in, like, and even if people I know, maybe they get in a fight or something, like there's so many things that could happen at an event. So for you to be like willing to do it though,
Yeah.
I like your attitude of like, I'd rather give them the trust.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. There's like a little summary that I send people, and like it's in all caps, like 3 times. It's like, don't go in the dryers. That's like the one thing, because people think it's really
Yes.
fun to go in the dryers, but it can like break them or whatever. But that was like the only issue I've ever had, and no one's ever done it again. So, but yeah, that's kind of where She Said kind of came from. Is I was like, what can I do to make this space not seem vacant to people?
Done an amazing job, man. I mean, and you're blowing up too. Like you're getting some recognition off it. How's that feel?
Yeah, like I did an interview at one point, and then when Toronto Life reached out and wanted to do that was
awesome.
When I was talking about like little accomplishments, like that was peak for me, you know? Like I was like, I'm in a print magazine for an idea that I had that, you know, we were talking about kind of having ideas and following through. Like I was like, I gotta follow through on this. But it would have been easy to just say like, I'm gonna do this and put up a little bit of art. But yeah, I was really proud of myself, to be honest, that I did that, and that I did it kind of on a mat leave as well too, and like made the most out of maternity leave, because I'm a super hyper person and I needed like a side project as well. So but yeah, it feels really good, and to be like on your podcast and meeting so many people, it feels really good.
No, it's awesome. Like I'm entering like my 30s. I'm 28.
Okay.
So my whole 20s has really been like just finding. I think a lot of people can relate to this. Like finding myself, as funny as that sounds.
Yeah.
Learning what I'm into. You know, finding something out there, and through your space, I've met so many cool people, and I'm gonna look back on this time and your space as like, damn, that was such a fucking awesome time.
Oh, that's really nice.
Honestly, a great time in Toronto history, because there's some very talented people that have had galleries at your show that you know.
Yeah, it's
a hub.
I know there's times where I'm like, am I going to be where that person did their first like solo show and they're gonna blow up? And it was like they started at She Said. Well, yeah, I think it's nice because it's like, not only, I mean, I think that I'm pretty like chill in general, but like, not only is it like easy to work with me, because like I said, like I let people have their kind of creative independence, but also there's no like risk, right? Like where I think when you're young, putting even a few $100s into your own work is hard. Like, you know what I mean? But like if you've got a space where you're like, okay, this is like an unpretentious space visually. You can bring out your friends. You're encouraged to do that. And then, I don't know, it's kind of like what I would want if I was an artist. It's just like a really unconventional, unpretentious space to have fun. It's been, it's been really cool. But yeah, I feel there's been like quite a few shows where I've been like, whoa, I wonder like what will happen to this person in the next 5 years.
Yeah, 100%. Special place, man. If anyone hasn't been, and like my favorite thing is you could go there on a day and it's just a gallery, laundromat.
Yeah,
like there's no art up, and then the next day you can go there and it's filled. I love that. I love that. You know what's funny? Actually, I never told you this. Before I heard about the gallery, I was just on Roncesvalles chilling, and I saw all these girls outside of this laundromat, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, do I have to start frequenting laundromats? Like, I don't know. And then very shortly after, shout out to Meredith Lum, she threw a show there. That's where I put 2 and 2 together. So I knew about you indirectly prior to even knowing that it was a gallery space.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. I went to like the OCAD graduation thing the other day, and I was like, I made these little like matches that said She Said to kind of give out, and a bunch of the artists knew about She Said, and it was like
Sick.
My heart was so warm, you know. I felt really cool. And so far, I mean, I haven't really heard anything. I don't know why I thought I would hear more critique, and sometimes I used to like downplay the space a little bit. I think I was just like a little bit insecure. I didn't want someone to criticize it before I did, so I'd be like, oh, I have this silly little, you know, and I've stopped doing that because I don't think that it lends itself well to like artists. Like I think artists have made it an incredible space, but it's really neat to see kind of what it organically has become, and I can't really take credit for it, to be honest. It's, you know.
But you're like the sensei.
Oh God.
You know, your spirit is there always. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel It's really cool, and it's interesting too. Like I was saying to you earlier, like I was very social in my 20s. Like that's definitely not a thing I've ever had issues with, and I've been able to do that in a different way. But like, you know, from my first show to the 5th show, it was like friends of friends of friends, and now I have strangers reaching out to me. But it very much was just like a second level of my social skills, just like meeting people and finding them interesting and reaching out to people. At first I was like really like asking people to do shows, which now I'm like booked up until I think October, and it's every week, so it's like a little bit different now. Yeah.
You know what? That's a good point. And I felt that way too, because for me, it's like I'm not really too much into clubs and stuff like that. But on a Friday, Saturday, I want to go out. I want to have a good time. And this is like an awesome hybrid of like.
I totally agree. Yeah. And especially like I said, right now, I'm like 9 months pregnant. Like I'm not going to go to a bar, but like I love going to art shows because there's like a thing, right? So you're looking at the art, it's interesting, and there's like people there to meet. I don't know, there's a purpose to it, right? So you're not, because I found it really hard to transition from like, I used to just go to bars all the time, and then I was like, I want to see my friends. I'm not going to sit at a bar and not drink, so like what do? And it's become art shows. That's what I spend a lot of time going to them. But I did realize that some are really intimidating and just not fun, you know?
Sure.
It's nothing, for me at least, looking at $20,000 art isn't fun. Like something that it's in no way would I ever be able to purchase.
And I feel like at that point too, it's like you're like, I'm supposed to think this is great art because of the price almost.
I know. It's, and that's one thing too. Like I honestly, like the OCAD show was one of the best art shows I've ever been to. And it was like set up like almost like a grade 9 science fair. It was so unpretentious. Amazing art, and everything was like, you know, maybe not, I don't like to use the word like affordable because that's different to everyone, but there was definitely not $20,000 pieces of art there, you know. It was really cool, and like 6 floors of it. It's amazing.
Love that. Shout out to the youth, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to the youth. So a second half of She Said is the actual laundromat that we've touched on. You're a business owner.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how owning the actual laundromat has bbeen for you.
Well, I will say that my boyfriend does 99.9% of that, probably because some of the things that he has to deal with. So, I mean, it's great in that it is passive income, right? So like the doors lock and unlock on their own, same with the lights. So like, you know, in our minds, we were like, this is a great business. And it was great to have during COVID because it wasn't impacted. That being said, we have definitely had to deal with things that we never thought, like people using the floor as a public washroom.
Oh, God.
Cleaning up human feces.
Oh, my God.
It's another level. I've not done it yet, but like my boyfriend's had to do some pretty horrific things that, you know, as a business owner, you never expected to do. And then like also having an unsupervised space, like I said, the overdoses were a little bit frequent in the beginning. And actually, weirdly, now that we have the gallery in the laundromat, the business is doing better because people see it as, they don't see it as a vacant space anymore. So we haven't had anybody shit on the floor in a while.
It's a good start.
Yeah, we haven't had any overdoses. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was talking about like the way that artists use the space, while also people on drugs use the space in very creative ways too. We've had someone who was a bit of an exhibitionist do his thing in the window, but nobody could get in because the doors were locked. So it was just a show for everybody, including the police.
When was this?
A couple months ago.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, so my boyfriend was like out with his friends, like having a poker night, and was like pretty pumped to be like out with his friends, and got a phone call that the police need to be let in because of this like, gentleman on drugs doing his exhibitionist stuff in the window. But yeah, it was almost like the red light district. Like all the lights were on, but it was dark outside, so everybody could see him. Oh my God. So yeah, Dan had to let everybody, like the police, into the building to, you know, so things like crazy. That. You know, you kind of need to roll with the punches. It's not for everyone.
Because I still think back on you said to me, like, because I said owning a laundromat, oh, that's a great idea, and you're like, yeah.
It's not like, I don't think it's necessarily the most lucrative, you know, business. But the one thing too, like we've had a gentleman that services the machines for us, and he said that we're one of the cheapest laundromats in the GTA.
Okay.
And same with when we got possession of the building. Like we didn't really didn't raise rent. We didn't want to come in and like change things. Basically, we just wanted to have happy tenants and run a business in Roncesvalles that had been there. And it's like, I think that we would probably make the same if we maybe rented it to somewhere else. But it's funny, in the beginning, we were like, this is going to be an amazing cash business. And I personally, I don't know what Dan would say, but I personally would not recommend to people to buy a laundromat. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of repairs. And I mean, I'm just like sensitive for criticism, but like the only emails you get are people being mad that something's not working or whatever. So sometimes it kind of gets to you where you're like, I'm trying so hard, but you'll never make people happy. And nobody, including myself, is never going to write a business owner and be like, great experience today at the laundromat. You know what I mean? Like,
really good point.
Really noticed that the floors were clean. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a funny business, but I don't want to come across as like complaining about it too. We're so lucky to own a business.
I feel I'm in that part of my life too, where it's like, if I'm being honest and it's maybe not a positive critique, I still have to be honest with it. Like you can't lie. Yeah. You know, if you're like, it's not, there's cons, there's pros, but there are cons. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I don't think so, at least.
I definitely like was way more involved in the beginning, and then as it became, like I said, like getting emails that were criticizing, and then like all of these incidents, I kind of like was like, I'm gonna do the she said part of it, and like you do the laundromat part. So yeah, Dan takes care of the kind of day to day of the laundromat, but they're important too. Like, you know, obviously it's crossed our minds would it make sense to close, but like, when I think about the community, and like I've always used laundromats too, like that's huge. Like you move into an area and you have a laundromat, it's great. When it's gone, like the next one is like closer to Queen. That impacts like a lot of people. So, and we have people that have been coming there for 20 years. So
yeah, I was gonna say, especially in the neighborhood you're in of Roncesvalles, which is a very unique part of Toronto, older like European feel there. There's people that are still there that have been there forever.
I know. It's and it's such a like interesting mix of like young people, but there are more than anywhere else. I think like a lot of like elderly people that have been there, and of Ukrainian and Polish descent.
Yes, very Eastern European.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a gentleman that comes in every Friday to do his laundry, and I honestly think he's done it for 20 years, and he like loves now because he comes in, he has a beer, does his laundry, and he looks at art, and he's really social too. So he loves like meeting the young people that are usually throwing the events and stuff. But I feel like the community, I thought I would get more pushback than I did, but like most people absolutely love the concept, and we try to keep the events now to like Fridays so that people know, right? Like you don't want to be doing your laundry around 30 people, come on a Tuesday, don't come on a Friday night kind of thing. But yeah, but some people choose to do their laundry on Friday just because they love it.
Just for the vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And also we were talking about too, like being social. If you live alone and you're like older and you don't drink, like how are you socializing? So it's like, again, it's art shows and necessarily like somewhere like Yorkville, it's kind of intimidating. But like if you're doing your laundry and there happens to be an art show with like really nice people, it's a lot easier to socialize for an hour or two.
Completely agree. If you have not been to She Said Gallery, I think you should, man. If you have any interest in art or community or just having a good time, it's becoming a Toronto staple.
Well, thank you. And it's neat too, because there's like a lot of different mediums. Like some people have done like screen printing and sold like clothing, and some people are selling art, and some people will just do like a one night thing. So they just want to kind of have a social thing. You know, it's
very flexible really place.
Cool. Yeah.
Being a mom now, do you think you're gonna kind of expose your kids to that type of a world?
Definitely. Yeah, that was a thing, like I said, that I was always really self-conscious about. And my daughter's name is Petra, and I already take her to art shows with us all the time. I think it's a good balance. Like obviously my life is a lot of like kid stuff now, but I also think that she needs to be a part of my life too. So I like to have kind of a balance with her where I bring her to adult things. But yeah, she goes to a lot of art shows, and I don't know, I think it's cool. I think her middle name's Donna, and I'm like, if she was going to be an artist, she can just go by like Petra Donna, which I think is like a cool artist name. But yeah, I really want to, if she doesn't want to be an artist, like, I mean, my partner and I are not creatives per se, but both of our siblings are. Like Dan's brother is an incredible musician, and same with my brother. He can play like any instrument. So I just want her to be like exposed, right? And like see things as, I think any parent's like that. But yeah, like all the things that you weren't exposed to, you're like, I want my kid to be.
Yeah.
And that's why it was important for me too to like raise my kid in downtown Toronto. Like I want them to, I don't know, have like diversity in their life, you know, like I said, Bracebridge is great, but it wasn't for me. And it left me feeling really insecure in my early 20s about lots of things because everything was so new to me, because like everything was so neutral and I don't know, just like boring for me in Bracebridge, I felt like.
I think a lot of people could relate to that. And then I feel like if you're in Toronto for a long enough time, maybe you take for granted how much there is to do here, how diverse it is. Like one of my good friends, he's a great director, and he says all the time, he's like, if I were to leave Toronto, I mean, unless you're going to like LA or New York, you're going somewhere where there's less to do, less diversity, less food options. Like,
which was important. Yeah.
It's as important. Like Toronto, I think we sometimes sleep on how much there is here.
Well, I was saying to my brother, like my one brother moved to a place called Roblin, Ontario. And I don't know what the population is, but I'm going to say like 500. And like he's had to be quite creative in finding things to do. So he like does a lot of volunteer stuff and he plays music. But like, I don't know, I'm not very motivated that way. Like I need things to come to me.
Some energy.
Yeah. And so I feel like in the city, like, you know, I go out all the time. Like even having a daughter, I'm very lucky that I can put her to bed and walk down the street and go for dinner or go to an art show. And I make that a priority. Like I try to go to a couple art shows a week, but that's because it's easy, right? Yeah. Like if I had to like pursue that and drive somewhere, I probably wouldn't. But if I can walk outside and attend things, and I love that about the city too. It's like, you know, I've been here long enough that I've met enough people, and you know, now I'm in like a different crowd than I was in my 20s and my 30s. But I feel like I'm starting to go to art shows, starting to recognize people, and it feels good. You know, it's
you're a factor out here, Jyll.
It feels nice to walk into a room and say hi to people and recognize people.
It does feel nice where everyone knows your name.
Yeah, you know, Complex,
the magazine.
No, the artist.
Oh yes, Complex.
Yeah,
yes.
So I see them everywhere, and they were like a big influence on. I realized how much they supported the arts. They were at every art show, and I was like, oh, I want to be like you. I want to be seen as kind of that like supportive, inclusive person. But yeah, that's a person that at pretty much every art show I go to, I run into, and it's like really nice to see a familiar face.
It's awesome, and you know what? It's one of those things too where it's like if you complain about your situation or your life or your city and you're not trying to make it better, then who the fuck are you to complain?
Yeah.
You know, so if you're putting effort into, like, for example, if I don't think there's a great art scene and I'm trying to bring something to the table, you're trying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know, it's funny. I find like a lot of people complain about traffic and don't have a car. I don't know. Like,
true, there's options. You're right.
There are options. Like, I would have 2 kids and no car, and I prefer that. I absolutely hate driving in the city, but I do think it's funny that people's complaints, like we can change our environment, we can change what we do. But yeah, like, I mean, the art scene, it may not be the easiest to figure out in the beginning, and I definitely, like, it was harder for me too, because it like wasn't necessarily, I would say, like in my age group, or that's what it felt like. But now that I've figured it out, I feel like there's shows every night. Like I can't even attend all the ones I want.
It's blowing.
And these are like really cool, like unpretentious, novel shows that are happening all over the city that are free.
Yeah, it's a really good time for that right now.
Yeah,
very good time for that. It's exciting.
Yeah,
really is. So I didn't know you actually worked at CAMH, and obviously that's a job where you're dealing with probably some unpredictability quite often. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I've always worked like on the administrative side. Okay. Like I'm a research operations manager, so it's like it's very admin heavy.
Okay.
But I would say like, yeah, I've been there for 16 years, so I've worked in the buildings. You know, I've definitely been around it. I've worked in clinical settings, either doing research or doing like quality improvement initiatives. But I also used to volunteer there on the forensic unit. So with all men who were there, instead of going through the legal system, they had been sent to CAMH, which is definitely challenging in terms of personalities, challenging in terms of, I don't know, like the environment, like actually physically smells on those units. But I felt like it was important to volunteer there as well as work there, because I wanted to kind of see like what the experience was like for people who are receiving services there as well. And obviously I'm like sitting behind a desk, like 9 to 5 kind of thing. But yeah, it's I've definitely been exposed to some stuff at CAMH for sure.
No, for sure. And I, again, really respect that you do that. I was going to ask you, how do you kind of separate that from bringing that home with you? Because even, for example, like I work a 9 to 5 too. And sometimes you have a rough day at work. It's like, fuck. So you kind of take that energy with you when you get home. But it's not that serious typically. When you're dealing with these types of situations, I feel like...
I've always actually had a really easy job with separating work from my social life. Like, especially in my 20s, like my friends didn't even know where I worked. I never, once I take work very seriously, and I don't think there's a single person out there that wouldn't say I'm not a hard worker. Like, I'm such a hard worker when I'm at work, but when I'm done, I don't even think about it. Or like if I'm on vacation, I don't check my email. Like I don't know, I've always been able to kind of separate those two things. I don't know if it's just being comfortable at CAMH or knowing like what I need, but yeah, I work very hard when I'm there, but when I leave, I'm done.
Very important. That's a great, again, similar to your confidence trait. That's a great trait, man. Compartmentalize.
Well, it's tough. Like you wouldn't want to. I mean, I don't know that I would say this is a unique thing, but I definitely like listen to, like, I love Soft White Underbelly. Have you ever heard of that show?
Love that show.
Okay. So like that's what I listen to at night before I go to bed. So like I feel like in that way, like I have to listen to it with headphones because it drives my boyfriend crazy. Darkest stuff.
I was going to say, before bed, you listen to that. Interesting. Okay.
That's what I listen. But I find it so interesting, but sometimes I joke that I'm a bit like dead inside. Like I'm so sensitive in one way, but then in other ways, like I'm very easy to just be like, but that's this and it's separate. And I feel like that's the same way with CAMH and same way with being able to listen to like really dark stories of people on Skid Row and fall asleep. Because I find people so interesting that I can almost like step away from the emotional side of it sometimes, which is probably good and bad.
Yeah.
But
I get that. I think I'm a little similar to that too. I love that show as well. Yeah. And I actually went to Skid Row recently in LA and seeing, I didn't really mean to, but I kind of was like in the vicinity. And then I'm like, I think I'm here. And then I was like, oh, I'm here. And seeing it was a very good experience.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, this is real, man. Like this is happening. I can't pretend like it's not.
I think it's really like I've always like sought out documentaries on stuff like that and addiction, but often there's like you hear the interviewers like emotional response to it, or we feel like we naturally, or I do even, like that you need to say like, I'm so sorry for that, or but I find one thing about like Mark, the host of that show, sometimes he's like brutal. Like people are telling their experiences of like sexual assault of children. He's like, yeah, okay, so like that happened when you were 7, but like when you were 11, like he's so cold almost. Yeah. But in a way, he gets like a better interview sometimes, I think, because I've definitely had some things in my life that have been tragic, and for me, I'm like okay talking about it, but I don't like to talk about it because I don't like the reaction of other people. Other people feel like sad for me or feel like they want to like hug me, and I'm like, I'm not really in that place. Like I can talk about it casually, and I feel like it's easier sometimes when people are a bit like, for lack of a better word, like dead inside when they're interviewing you, because he gets like, these people, that's their lives, that's their whole lives. So for him to react and be like, I'm so sorry, like maybe, they don't want to be touched or, felt sorry for because they don't even know any different. But yeah, I don't know. I find that show amazing, and his interview style kind of amazing.
It is. And I've watched interviews of him too. Like he was on Joe Rogan. Did you watch that one? And he talked about it too, where it's like, like it's talked about like there's such an easy fix for these things, and it's like someone's whole life was sexual abuse, drug addiction. Like it's not a simple fix here, guys. Like there's serious root causes. This is a darker subject, but yeah, I feel like that's it comes across too. I've had experiences in my life where people have thought that I've been like quite cold in my responses to things, but like if you haven't been through it, you don't really know. Like maybe you become cold for a reason because that's how you deal with it, or maybe you are just like burned out and you're not sad, you're actually mad. But yeah, I feel like there's I don't know, definitely like more recently like people are quite sensitive, and I think
I hate being the person like talks about my age all the time, but like just from a bit of a different generation where things are like, it's like kind of like put your head down and like toughen up.
Yeah.
So kind of have that, like you won't hear me complain very much. Like even if I have a headache, I'm like, I'm great, you know, like I'm kind of.
And you have mom strength.
Yeah, exactly.
Moms are built different too, man.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't enjoy feeling like a victim. I don't enjoy when people feel bad for me or want to come for me. I like being like the confident person, and so I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting, but people do. I have felt that before, where people have like judged me, and I felt like, you know, you don't know me, you don't know the experience. Yeah, like it's very easy to just say like you should do this or this is the solution.
Exactly. It's like if you're not in that. You mentioned earlier too, like physically being there is tough because like there's smells, there's people that are on drugs, whatever. Like if you're not physically experiencing it, you can't really speak on it sometimes. Like,
and it's such an unregulated, like we live in such a time of people being like, you know, quite politically correct, and especially in my work, like I'm very careful with my language that I use at work. But when you go into like a forensic unit, it's unbelievable. I've never heard such overt racism. Like it's like feels like the wild, wild west. And it's, I don't think people realize that not everyone's living in this like beautiful land. Like it's rough in there, and you can't leave. Like the people that are there actually can't leave either. So like you're stuck there sometimes for a year or two with these like smells and racism and staff that are burnt out, and I don't know,
that's crazy,
you know. But we didn't, like, for the average person, I think you're like, oh, it's a beautiful hospital, and not to say anything bad about CAMH is doing wonderful things, especially for forensics. They're making changes, but for me it was like a real eye-opener of like, yeah, but like this is the real world here.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of what I meant with seeing Skid Row, where it's like, you know, this is here, like, you know, you could, especially I found it interesting. It's like downtown Los Angeles. Like the fucking Lakers play like 10 minutes away from there.
Yeah.
So just this weird contrast of extreme wealth and the literally opposite.
I find it always like one thing I'll never get used to too on that show is like young prostitutes, like people that are talking about 11 or 12 and like how, because like I don't want to judge, like I said, like people will judge, but like how that has become a norm for people, like it's people that live in that area walking by and seeing that, like that is wild to me.
It's rough, man.
But that's become a norm for them, and we can't really judge them for that because that's their everyday. But for me, like Jyll Simmons living in Toronto, like I'm like blown away that there's like kids prostituting and people are like, yeah, that's the way it is. That's how they're making money.
It's true. And in the United States, like in Los Angeles, like this is not in a third world country.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Skid Row seems unbelievable to me.
It is, man. It was a sight. It was a sight to see. For
I've never been to LA. I've always wanted to go, but I probably would not go to Skid Row, even though I would want to. But I probably would
not. You got kids now.
You
take care of them. But LA is still an awesome place. You should go. Yeah, great, cool. Super cool place. But not without its problems, like every other city.
Yeah. I've gone like in Vancouver. I went and saw kind of like East Hastings and stuff. But
it's similar. It's just bigger.
Yeah, but I definitely had a moment of like, what am I doing? This is not like, you know, this is not a show. I shouldn't be here. You know, this is people's lives. But yeah, like curiosity gets you sometimes. Where you're like,
it does.
Yeah.
But man, we're approaching an hour here, which is nuts.
Well, weirdly, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, but also I'm a very chatty person, and I was like, I've never had trouble talking. So.
Which is awesome for an interviewer. You're a great guest to have. But you got some notes there. I'm kind of curious. Well, was there anything that you wanted to bring up here?
I don't know. I just wanted to. One thing I will say is that I've worked with so many artists now, and often I talk to them on Instagram. So like sometimes I'll forget what their first name is, and so the research manager and me wanted to make this list, but I don't know. It was just some of the people. Yeah,
maybe. Let's do some shout outs, man. I love that.
Okay, well, I want to say first thanks to my friend James Hewitt, who did the first show. And he is an established artist and had his own gallery. So for him to do his show and have my first show be James Hewitt was amazing.
That's sick.
So, and then I had my friend Kat's boyfriend, Dave Murray, do a show, and he brought out people, which led me to meet like Adele and Age, whose sweater I'm wearing, although you can't see.
What does that say there? Pray for us?
Pray for us.
Fire.
Yeah, and then I feel like from their show, I met more people. So I don't know. I just wanted to say like thank you to some of the people at the beginning, like Adele and Age and Robbie. Emily Battaglini, I think is her last name, and she did the Contact Festival last year, and I think another person that's going to be quite famous, and she was really hesitant about doing a show, like, you know, she was kind of shy, and like, I'm so proud that I was her first show. Haley Axelrod, obviously.
Shout out to Haley.
You know, I bought 2 of her pieces, and they're in our living room. Another person that I thought so lucky, but yeah, I don't want to name too many people because I don't want to leave people out, but I just also want to say thanks to my best friend, Peter Andrew. He did a show, and he is a very established artist, and so for him to come and do something with Michelle Rabin, and they've got their own following and are semi-Toronto famous, it was cool that they did something at She Said, and kind of they brought out a totally different audience than some of our other people. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. What are some upcoming shows that She Said?
Oh my gosh, see, putting me on the spot with the names. No,
actually, you know what? Better question. How do people see what's upcoming?
Oh, thank you. So on Instagram. So basically I post, usually I ask people, I'm not great with social media, I'm trying to get better, but I ask people to tag me as a collaborator or something so I can repost. But basically there's a show every Friday from now until I think October.
Sick.
Yeah, so please follow She Said Gallery on Instagram. If you want to do a show, contact me. Sometimes there's cancellations. But yeah, it's really, I can't wait to see what people do with the space. Like I said, I often show up and I'm surprised by what people have done with it. So yeah.
Huge shout out to Jyll, man. One last thing I want to say, and I'm stealing this from the Chrome Sunsets interview again. You had a really great quote that you live by. It's like, will I care about this when I'm 80?
Yeah.
And I really like that. I know what you mean, but would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah, honestly, I like live by that. Anytime I've had anything stressful, difficult decisions in my life, I think about when I'm 80 and I reflect back on this time. What will I have been like proud of myself for doing? And it's really helped me, especially like even things like work. Like I once had to leave work for a personal matter, but I was like, when I'm 80, I won't even remember what that grant was, but I will remember supporting my friend through this difficult time in their life, you know? So yeah, I feel like it helps guide me. In my mind, I'll have all this wisdom when I'm 80, and so it's nice to think what will matter, because I mean, we've all had it. You're so stressed out, and then a year later, you don't even remember what it was.
Man, a day later.
Yeah, exactly. So I always try to think, when I'm 80, will I be stressed about this? And it really helps me make, I think, good decisions.
I think so too, man. I think that's awesome advice.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Shout out to Jyll. Thank you so much, man. You had me in your home. You had me in your gallery. You're the best. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting me. I was talking about like little things that mean a lot to me, and not that your podcast is a little thing, but I don't think I can explain to you how much it means to me to be invited on a podcast. So thanks for making me feel so special. Thanks for being so supportive of the gallery. Thanks for coming to me. 9 months pregnant. I'm scared to leave my little area right now.
You're the first, by the way, first pregnant guest that I've ever had.
Oh,
so
there you go.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for bringing wonderful people into my life. You also have introduced me to some wonderful people.
Okay,
so thank
sick.
you.
No, man, I'll do another show for sure.
Awesome.
That's not the last. That's for sure. But anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thank you to all the artists and everyone that has made the space so special. By no means am I taking credit for what She Said has become. So thank you for making a cool space for me.
Thank you. Just follow She Said Gallery on. Is it She Said Gallery?
Yes. She Said Gallery on Instagram.
Follow She Said Gallery. VersatileVigilante. We're out here. Shout out everybody. Let's fucking get it, man.